Hi, this is David Baumblatt from Terabant Leadership. Thanks for joining in. I appreciate it. If you're in the conversation or the live chat, feel free to say hi. Today, we're going to be talking about BRICS, the gold, the dollar, a little bit about crypto. We'll do issues later about crypto, but the reason why this topic is so important is, as I said, when I left in 2010, whether you understand this concept or not, because I know when I say this phrase to some Americans, it just doesn't make sense. When I say we don't have a country anymore, we have a corporation. Our military is a corporation. You've heard of this term, the military industrial complex. Everything about us is really being dictated. We're talking about our culture and whatnot from the corporations. Our politicians, who do they work for? And a lot of these corporations, they're all globalist entities, and we're talking American globalist entities. Some of them could be a foreign influence as well, but these would be what we consider to be the globalists. This is what is influencing us. And what I would say is probably the only thing that's really going to be the impetus for change in America, it's going to be money. The stock market, the US dollar, the economy, the money, everything else, it just doesn't matter. I mean, think about it. We are not a Christian nation in America. I know you want to argue, some people want to argue, say, no, David, we're not. We're not a Christian nation anymore. Two, we ain't a European nation anymore. I don't know when it changed. I don't know, 50 years ago, we are not a country of white people. We're not a country ruled by white men. It's over, people. Again, this is where I think the revolution is going to come. So we're not a European country anymore. We're not a Christian country anymore. We don't even have freedoms anymore. I mean, again, if anyone's followed me just on purely the First Amendment, freedom of speech, censorship, we really don't have freedoms like we had before, which I don't understand, again, why we're thanking our military for their service. So, we could go on, and what do we have? We have a corporation, and we have a guy named Donald Trump who, in and of itself, it's not bad to have a CEO versus a communist running the country. But a CEO runs a corporation. A leader runs a country. And this is where you're going to see sooner or later. And again, I still speak very highly of Donald Trump. And I've always said he's the best that we have. But again, he's running the country, meaning the corporation, like a CEO. That's not so bad, but that's not a leader. And what we want is, and to make it very simple, to everyone understand that, a CEO who runs a corporation, believe it or not, all the rhetoric, it comes down to money. At the end of the day, if the revenues aren't up, if the costs aren't down, if the company's not profitable, that person is an unsuccessful CEO. And so money is the main driver in corporations, in business, in Donald Trump's thinking. There's nothing bad or good about that. It's the natural order of things if you're a CEO. What if you're a leader of a country? It's your people. Your people come first. We don't have that because I've said many times, who's an American? I want to get on this subject. I don't want to go so much on a tangent, but it always comes back to the same thing about collapse and has to do with money. But always remember, if you're going to be a leader, the number one thing are your people. But I've said this, who's an American? I don't know who an American is, thanks to diversity. So as you can see, that there's going to be a fissure. It's hard to put Americans first if we are not quite sure who an American is. Because remember, even Donald Trump, because he's a business person, they like legal immigration. They like it. If it makes profitable sense, that he'll flood this country. So if you cannot define who your people are, who your tribe is, it's hard to lead. Let me go with this. I don't know who we have in the stream. Hopefully, am I coming through? If anyone wants to say, it'd be great if someone could do a comment if you're hearing me loud and clear. So let me talk a little about China and gold. We're gonna watch some episodes, and that is when I left America in 2010. It's not like I'm a professional investor. Not at all. I put 100% of my investments in gold. And again, truth be told, it could have been a better investment if I invested whatever, Amazon, Meta, Facebook, all these other ones. But the good thing, you already know I'm here. Hey, Shane, good to hear from you. Just want to make sure. The thing about gold is gold is never going to be a bad investment. It's possible that if you invest in gold or silver, again, there's other precious metals I'm not going to go into, I'm not too familiar with, though I'm not going to argue. And some people are like, no, invest in palladium, uranium. We're going to keep it simple with the gold and the silver. It's been around for thousands of years. So investing in gold and silver, and I usually recommend the hard assets. And trust me, I have no advertisements. I'm not speaking on any company whatsoever. Hey, Ranger Bob. Ranger Bob, your name sounds familiar. I think we contacted once before back then. And I see, okay, I see you're on X. So again, if anyone's posting, I'm posting on X, YouTube, and Rumble. It's amazing too. When I remember I said we don't have a country anymore, thanks Elon Musk for, what's the word, for suspending me. I'm on my 4th account on X. I repeat this, I know I do, but I want people to understand our freedoms are going away in America. Not only an American citizen, but a military veteran to suspend me 3 times on X. And then on Facebook, I was also suspended. I couldn't even do live streams anymore. But you understand what I'm saying. We don't have a Christian country anymore. You're going to have to fight guns and ammo. We don't have a European country anymore. You're going to have to fight guns and ammo. And guess what? We don't have freedom anymore, starting with the First Amendment. So again, back to what I'm saying about the gold, because I keep saying, I think the only thing that's really going to, and that's why I said there's going to be 3 stages. It's going to be collapse, revolution, and civil war. What will be the collapse? Most of it will entail economic. Because when the money starts getting tight and there's going to be some type of economic failure, that's what's going to push people, violence with food. So it's really going to be economics. And so what we're going to look on here is, I'm going to speak a lot about China. That's my expertise. I'm going to speak really fast. We're going to do some videos. Some of these concepts you may already know, but I already started studying back in China. Back in 1995, an organization was formed called the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. It started in 1995, and you could almost say it's the old Warsaw Pact. This is where the Russia, the BRICS, and so to make it simple is BRICS is sort of like the economic arm. Think of that like the European Union. Very simple. The European Union and NATO. NATO is the military arm. The European Union is the economic arm. And they're both these organizations. The Shanghai Cooperation Organization is their version of NATO. That's the military arm. And the BRICS is the economic joint. And we all know what BRICS stands for. By now, you have Brazil, India, Russia, South Africa, and there's more nations that want to join. Now, I also want to make it known, when I say this, I'm not necessarily defending China, defending Russia, but I am going to defend the principle, because what's happening to them, it's happening to us as Americans. So what is that? And again, I don't believe China is ever going to be the world superpower. I did other videos, but these other countries, to include China, they are tired of America being their boss. I mean, look at our American government. Aren't you, as an American citizen, tired of the American government having such a, it's almost like an imperialistic control over our freedoms? So China doesn't, believe it or not, and I'll do more videos, they don't want to rule the world. They don't want to become the next superpower, but they are tired of America being their boss. And economically, and this also goes with Russia, they know if their economic system is dependent on the US dollar, well, they're going to be dependent on America, which is another reason why I left America. I didn't want to be dependent on the US government. So we all strive, no matter who we are in the world, it's okay to have someone over us. We live in a hierarchical world. You're going to have a government, you're going to have a boss. But if you start believing they are becoming tyrannical, and that's how the American government is, it's just gotten tyrannical. Even I need to get back to the BRICS, but even Donald Trump saying we have to take Greenland back, we have to take these other countries, even the Panama Canal. Have fun. We'll see if it works. But is taking Greenland back, is that going to increase our Christianity? Is that going to increase our European countries? Is that going to increase our freedom? But we are turning into a declining empire. And what does a declining empire do? It starts overreaching and it starts becoming tyrannical. And the international law is really the American law, because America's got the guns and the gold. And so they manipulate the laws. So it shouldn't surprise you that there's other nations, again, India, South Africa, these aren't like heavy hitters, but they're tired of being dependent on the American system. Can't blame them. So here's the deal. When I lived in America, I invested all in gold. Was it the best investment? That could be argued. Maybe investing in high-tech stocks would have been better, but it's never going to be a bad investment. But then all of a sudden, crypto comes out. We'll do another video. And then the crypto people are saying, no, gold is a bad investment. I don't know. And I've done videos where I'll do other videos on crypto. I think it's really ignorant to say gold or silver is a bad investment. It's been around for thousands of years. I say again, I think gold or silver is going to be either a good investment or it could be a phenomenal investment, especially in times of turbulence, which I think they're going in. So the BRICS, and we'll show the video, what they're trying to do is they're trying to put together their own currency. But I even said it, and I think I told you this, here in China too, I said, I wouldn't even recommend people replacing the US dollar with the Chinese yuan. Even though banks are lowering their store wealth in US dollars and increasing in Chinese yuan, I still don't have faith per se in the Chinese yuan as a global currency. So what's going to happen? Well, they're going to make a basket currency. And what is it going to be? And you'll see in the video. They're going to make what's called the BRICS unit. And this unit is going to be formulated 40% and 60%. I got to get my numbers right. I think it was in the video, but it's either 40% or 6%. It's going to be backed by gold. Gold is going to be the main backer. And then it will be a mix of currencies of the BRICS nations that I just said. So it'll be part ruble. This would be the Russian ruble, the Indian rupee. I think it's called the Indian rupee, the Chinese yuan. I don't know what it is in South Africa, what they do. So it's going to be a conglomeration, but it's going to be heavily backed by solid gold. That's why you're seeing the gold price rise. These BRICS nations are buying gold like there's no tomorrow because they understand that the world now, and I agree, is not very confident in parking your money in the Chinese yuan, but we are confident parking it with the gold. Why? Because we've been doing it for thousands of years. And that's where I just disagreed with the crypto rhetoric of gold is, going away or gold's a bad investment, go to crypto. It just didn't make sense to me. And I'm going to speak, if we have time, a little bit positive about crypto. But I say again, gold has been always a good investment. I think it will always be a good investment. Again, this is not a financial channel, but we're talking about where the world is going. Let's do a quick video on the BRICS unit so you can understand. Some of you may get this already, some of you don't. Let's just take a look on this.
Change forever. And the US dollar may have just met its biggest threat in modern history. BRICS has officially launched a gold-backed digital currency, and it's already shaking Wall Street, Washington, and the entire global markets. This is the unit. Welcome back to Crypto Decoding, your home for deep, fast, and accurate crypto intelligence. Before we dive in, hit like, share, the BRICS network. It's important to understand it is not a replacement for national currencies. It doesn't work like Bitcoin, and it's not meant for everyday consumers. Think of it as a neutral bridge currency designed to settle trade without ever touching the US banking system. This is a tool for nations, for central banks, and for major corporations to conduct business on their own terms. It's a foundational layer for a new kind of global trade architecture. Now, let's talk about the secret behind its value. This is where it gets really interesting. The unit is backed by a 40% physical gold reserve. This isn't just a promise, it's a structural component of the currency's design. The remaining 60% comes from a basket of BRICS currencies. We're talking about Brazil's real, China's yuan, India's rupee, Russia's ruble, and South Africa's rand. Each of these currencies is weighted at 12% inside the model. And here's the clever part, this mix updates daily. This mechanism keeps the unit stable, diversified, and, crucially, politically neutral. It's not tied to the whims of any single nation's economy or political agenda. It's a collective asset, owned by the entire alliance. So how does this system actually work? Every single unit's value is calculated using a blockchain operated by RIAS, that's the International Research Institute for Advanced Systems. All deposits, pricing updates, and reserves sit on a permissioned blockchain. This means it's a closed, controlled network, not a public one like Bitcoin or Ethereum. In this system, gold serves as the ultimate anchor. It absorbs volatility when the member currencies move up or down, providing a bedrock of stability that fiat currencies often lack. And let me be clear, this is not a theory, it's not a white paper. It's already being tested in real settlement environments right now. And here's a massive twist you probably didn't see coming. The Unit Foundation appointed an AI CEO, not a human. You heard that right. They claim that having an AI in charge removes political pressure, the risk of corruption, and emotional, reactive decision-making.
Okay, let me just do some comments on that real quick. And yeah, Shane pointed out gold is not, it's an insurance policy, just like you have fire insurance. But what you're going to see as the dollar declines, and this is where I say again, we'll explain quickly on the unit. We have a couple more videos to watch. But what we all know is this: gold and silver have been around for thousands of years. It's probably not going away. But what does go away in history? Fiat currencies. Fiat currencies go away. And let's face it, if it wasn't for World War II, meaning America, if it wasn't for America winning World War II, we probably would not have been a superpower. The US dollar, which eventually replaced the, what the hell is it? The pound, the English, the sterling pound as the world currency. So it took a major war, a victory in the war, to put the US dollar on the map as the dominant currency. But fiat currencies don't last. We know that. Gold does. So again, this new unit that the BRICS is doing is what they're trying to do, and I think we could all agree, is they don't want to be sanctioned. Here's another thing to understand too about the BRICS is if you go to China, I would assume same thing in Russia, when you're using, well, many times you can, we use the normal credit cards like Visa and MasterCard. This is called the SWIFT system. They have to go through what's called New York City. So that's why the BRICS nations have already come up with their own, you could say, credit card systems that they don't have to bypass the New York SWIFT system because, again, they want to be independent. So in a very common sense way, I think we could all agree that all nations, all people, you want to be independent. And if you are dependent on something, hopefully it's fair and benevolent. But the American government is just changing in a way where these countries do not want to be dependent on us economically. And I believe Donald Trump mentioned this, and he's right. If the US dollar loses the world reserve status, I think it will, then it's like he said something like it's worse than losing a major war. Absolutely. It's probably, it would be for America like losing a World War III, because again, we are a corporation. We push our might in the world so much through the economic leverage where we can print dollars and people have to take dollars, meaning other countries. If that mechanism changes, you're going to see inflation in America like you've never seen before, which I believe it's going to happen. Therefore, if you own gold or silver, it's going to be a hedge beyond belief. And I do believe it's going to trickle down to retail investors where they're going to finally realize they need to get their hands on physical gold or physical silver, because these institutionals, particularly sovereign wealth funds, sovereign countries like Russia and China, are already hoarding it up. And I could tell you something, I did a video before. Living in China, and this is not the Chinese government, it's the Chinese people. And I heard it's the same thing in Russia. Their view of gold is on another dimension than America. Like living and growing up in America, I just view gold as jewelry. I mean, every now and then I sort of heard like a neighbor, storing gold, but it just wasn't as normal. It's absolutely normal in China. We're talking the normal Chinese citizen to buy physical gold, meaning this has been happening for hundreds of years. This is part of what they do, thousands of years in China, where they will buy gold and store it in their own personal vaults. Maybe because their system isn't built up to where Americans are used to. If you have money, you invest in where? Wall Street. I mean, that's usually what I think a lot of Americans do, besides your house. But if you ask most Americans, if you have money, where do you invest it? The stock market. They don't really have a trustworthy way of investing in the stock market in China, not yet. So where would they park a lot of their money? Gold and silver. So for them, the value of gold and silver, especially, and it's not just them, in all these developing nations like India and the BRICS nations, like I said, is at such a higher level than Americans can understand, that where they look at gold as truly a safe store of value, both in bad times, a great investment, But even in good times, just in form of security, that it's on another dimension than America. I think it's going to change more in America when times of crisis come and people are going to realize, oh man, I wish I bought gold. But that's where we're going in there. Yeah, Shane, and I think a lot of times too, people are going to realize, I think it's the 3 Gs, goats, guns, and gold. I think that was called goats, guns, and gold. And what does it mean? It means to be more independent, more self-reliant, so you're not dependent. And so that's why you see two Americans where they're rethinking about possibly living in the countryside where they could grow their own food, they have their own guns for protection. And in times of crisis, if you have gold and silver, that could quite possibly be the most valuable currency available, because the US dollar is going, again, I predict, and what did I predict too about Donald Trump? I said he is going to do the same thing that all the other presidents do. And what is that? Print money. And what does he do? You hear him, he talks about, hey, we want to increase our military strength. Okay, I mean, that's great. It's going to cost money. But a lot of these programs, he is doing stuff to save money. You could say kicking out the illegals. And he definitely has a business mindset, I think, more than most presidents. But he wants to go down with a good legacy. And there's no doubt in my mind, he will not tolerate a bad economy under his leadership. So there's only really one thing he's got to do, is print money. But if the US dollar loses world reserve status, that printing money is like printing paper. So it's a very dangerous road. But I believe Trump will continue to do what he and all the other presidents have done before. He's going to print money. So if you're into assets like gold and silver, then you're standing pretty good when inflation comes. But if you're not, you're going to be in some trouble. Let's just go to another video here. And again, it's the same topic we're talking about. We're going to go right here.
In 2025, gold went up a whopping 47%. That's almost twice as much as the Nasdaq and the S&P 500. These are historic numbers. But this isn't just a bull market. When gold goes up this much, it points to something much deeper. It means something is breaking in the monetary system. This is a bigger crisis that's causing the biggest gold market shakeup in a century. And what you might not realize is that it all starts with China. In this video, we're going to learn what's really behind this surge, why the gold system as we know it could be on the brink of collapse, and what you need to do about it. Let's get into it. First, let's clear up why gold is valuable in the first place. Here's a fact for you. Did you know that all the gold in the world would fit into a cube with sides 23 meters long? Gold is rare, durable, and useful. It doesn't rust or decay. It can be shaped for jewelry, electronics, and even medicine, and has been
I also want to do a hint. This is, how much advertisement have you been hearing about gold? Again, since I left America in 2010, what you're going to see is you're going to start seeing more news, rhetoric, hearsay, more and more about gold and silver. This is not, I believe, any type of scam advertising push to buy gold and silver. Again, I have no financial gain or law. I've never done any advertising for any companies. So if you start hearing more and more of this about you should buy gold and silver, again, it's either a scam, they want you to do it, but again, it's been around for thousands of years, or perhaps the economic winds of the world are changing and danger is coming to America. That could be quite possibly why people are talking about gold and silver.
measured by humans for thousands of years. Think about all the ways we use gold in our everyday language. That's as good as gold. The goose that lays the golden egg, he's the golden boy. Gold is firmly embedded in our consciousness. People also trust gold as a safe haven because historically it holds its value even when money becomes inflated. So, why has the price of gold been surging? Most people think it's because central banks have been buying up massive amounts of gold. Well, they are. They're buying record amounts. This is because of the colossal amounts of money printing that's gone on since 2020 in response to the pandemic. Money printing was already high, but during the pandemic, it went into overdrive. Money printing inflates the currency and makes it less valuable because when there's more money in circulation, it makes the money everyone already had less valuable. Central banks are trying to protect their wealth by buying gold, which, as we've already mentioned, is a safer store of value during inflationary times. But that's not the only reason. When Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, the US basically seized Russia's bank accounts. This spooked governments around the world, as they suddenly felt their money wasn't safe in the US-controlled financial system. This encouraged them to buy gold, which suddenly seemed a lot safer than US treasuries. As a result, we've seen demand for gold hit never-before-seen levels. So what's going on? It all goes back to China. China has been on a gold-buying spree for over 12 consecutive months. The Chinese central bank is hoarding it. In February 2022, China divested $22.7 billion of US treasuries in order to buy gold. Divested basically means the opposite of invested, meaning they sold. They're trying to reduce their dependence on the US dollar. They've set up something called the Shanghai Gold Exchange. The aim of the Shanghai Gold Exchange is to break the grip on the paper gold market, currently held by COMEX in the US and the London Bullion Market Association, or LBMA, in the UK.
Yeah, I should do a video on that. The entire world gold market now is pushing away from America, and 3 hubs, maybe 4 hubs are coming to my mind that's pushing heavily. Switzerland, Dubai, Singapore, Hong Kong. Obviously, they mentioned Shanghai, but it's connected obviously with Hong Kong. But it would be in Singapore, Hong Kong, Shanghai, you could say, Dubai, and Switzerland, because the world demand for gold now is getting so high that it's shifting even outside of America. So again, this should tell you something. This is probably not a gimmick. It's probably not, and again, I've been into this since 2010. This is growing, people. And as the dollar declines, the value of gold will increase. It's just simple math.
So, what is the paper gold market? The paper gold market refers to financial products that give investors exposure to the price of gold without requiring them to own or hold any physical metal. Instead of trading gold bars or coins, people trade contracts, shares, or certificates that represent. So,
You want to move around this 1 second.
So, what happens next? And what can you do about it? Well, the gold markets are trying to paper over the cracks. Recently, we saw the US lease gold from India to try to show that they have more physical gold than they actually do, and therefore bring more confidence back into the market. But history shows that this papering over the cracks strategy doesn't work. In 1944, the Bretton Woods Agreement saw the entire world move onto a gold-backed standard. It would make the US dollar the reserve currency of the world, and the US dollar would be pegged to gold. But pegging to gold never works, because countries always print more money than they have. By 1961, the Bretton Woods Agreement was already fracturing. In an effort to paper over the cracks, a group of 8 central banks in the US and 7 other European countries entered the London gold pool in an effort to pool their gold together and make it look like they had more gold than they did. They worked in a concerted manner to pump gold into the market at strategic moments to suppress the spikes and manipulate the gold price. It worked for 6 years, but eventually it became untenable.
All right, let me do a comment on that. We got a couple more videos. Let me do a comment. I've said this before. I think, Gonk, you said the rand. I think that's the South African currency called the rand. So let me do this quick. We're going to watch a couple more videos on gold, and that's what people may or may not understand. If you served in the military, you probably get this, and that is when Nixon took the US dollar off the gold standard, probably not a good idea. I think looking back, we all agree. But the key question is what did he or America replace the dollar with? So it held its value on gold. It was pegged to the gold, and then it was unpegged and unbased. But really, in some ways, the US dollar was still pegged to a value, was still pegged to an entity. Believe it or not, it sounds kind of controversial or hearsay, but it was actually pegged to something called the United States military. That's the Army, Air Force, Army, Marines, you name it. And what do I mean by that? In order to become a superpower, it's really about the guns and the gold, meaning an economic might and a military might. And as long as when we printed dollars, that's why we have the biggest defense budget. I think in half the world combined, our defense budget is still bigger. As long as we have the biggest guns in the world, and we basically can destroy you, another country, an enemy, that itself is faith. Because think about, what is faith and value? Why do you put money in gold? It's all about faith. It's belief. You have belief in a company, meaning a stock. You have belief in gold. You might have belief in Bitcoin. A lot of it has to do with belief. So the US dollar is, you have a belief in the United States of America, the government, the country. So that's why you believe in the US dollar. But if the US dollar is not backed by gold, people say it's backed by thin air. I said, no, it's not. It's not backed by thin air. It's, at the end of the day, ultimately, the most important thing it's backed by the US military. And what you don't realize is, when you go overseas, what ultimately makes America a superpower? Ultimately, it's the military. Then after that, don't get me wrong, it's our economic might, our corporations, our tech firms, Silicon Valley, Wall Street. But if it's not, I mean, this is sort of a joke when I say military first. Think about if you went in a room with a bunch of bankers, and there's 10 bankers, you go in the room and you owe all of them money. They're rich bankers. And they say, pay up. And you say, you know something? I figured out one thing. I'm the only person in this room with a gun. I mean, I can kill all you people here. Guess what? My loan is forgiven. I'm not going to pay off any money. Meaning, that's the power of military might. When you can destroy and kill your adversaries and basically blow up other countries, people will respect you. People will have faith in the US dollar, faith in America. So when the US military declines, and anyone who's been listening to my videos, they know it's been in decline. West Point, which is really the most strategic government agency of all the entire government, when that declines, we're talking in US intelligence, law enforcement, military, special, it. When the military starts declining, that is truly the red flag for America, where people are like, then they're definitely not going to invest anymore, believe in the US dollar. But it doesn't matter. You can almost say how much debt we have. If we are still the money, and that kind of goes in another video where we're talking about Taiwan, but our military is degrading. And what does Donald Trump want to do? He wants to bring back our military in its full form. Well, we'll see how that goes. And that's also going to cost a lot of money. But I want to make that point. We're going to go back to the gold, but it's a very important point where people don't understand how much America has turned into the Roman Empire. When you think about the Roman Empire, what do you think? A strong military. When you don't have a strong military anymore, I'm telling you, people are not. Now, if your dollar is backed by gold, that's fine, as long as people believe in gold, and they have for thousands of years. But they're not going to believe in the US dollar that's not backed by gold, that's backed by the military, if it's not strong anymore. And that's what you see now. You're seeing China and Russia, and I don't blame them, even India. They are building up their militaries. Again, I don't want to debate this. You could believe me now, or you could believe me later. But when you're going to look back on America in 10 years, you're going to see all the signs of a declining empire. And we are in the last moment struggling. But the reason why gold is coming up is because the US dollar is going down. So let me do another video right here to kind of emphasize this.
Of silver and gold reached new highs today. Gold has reached record highs consistently throughout 2025 and are up almost 70% on the year. Silver prices, meanwhile, have gained almost 130% over the course of the year. Let's bring in Javier David for much more on this. He's the business editor of the Dallas Morning News and a CBS News contributor. Javier, thank you so much.
And the reason I bring this video up is some people have speculated, which doesn't really make much sense. I get it. When it comes to crypto, there's a lot of scams. Some people think that this gold push is another scam for people to buy gold. Gold has been around for thousands upon thousands of years. I don't think it's a scam. And I've always said, I don't think buying gold or silver is ever going to be a bad investment. It may not be the best investment during certain times, but it's probably not going to be a bad investment, even though I think it's going to be a phenomenal investment coming up. But now you're seeing different news sources here talking about gold and the US dollar. Guess what, people? This is a trend. It's building. The US dollar is in decline.
For your time, explain this to us. What's the reason behind investors' appetite for silver and gold?
Yeah, look, the short answer is inflation. What you're seeing with gold and precious metals writ large is the inflation hedge in action. These metals are safe haven assets. They rise when the global economy is either turbulent, uncertain, or riven by conflicts, and all of these conditions are everywhere these days. So precious metals are basically these attractive alternatives to paper money in times when price pressures are bubbling. You know, 2025, the gold trade has been so lucrative for a number of investors, even in the face of a stock market that set new records. So fears of this AI bubble have kind of helped gold, silver, and platinum at the margins by boosting their safe haven allure. But basically, investors use these metals as a hedge against inflation. It basically acts as a tax. It diminishes purchasing power, it reduces the value of paper money, eats away at market returns, but it just helps investors park their money in alternative asset pools that can protect their returns, offer them higher returns, or at least just blunt the impact from higher prices.
All right, that makes sense. Cleveland Fed President Beth Hammack says she believes inflation is too high and that interest rates should be on hold after.
Yeah, inflation's going up, people. It's going up. What we want to do is let me just do 2 more videos on the BRICS, and then we're going to combine it with the last one with crypto. And I get it. Crypto, anyone investing in crypto, whether you want to do it or not, it's not me, that definitely has a risk to it. But I'm going to explain the connection with gold. But I say again, there was talk before. I don't know if you followed crypto when it came out, because again, I was always heavy into gold, but there was pushback from crypto saying, don't buy gold. It didn't make any sense to me. I mean, you can invest in both if you want, but I've said gold has been around for thousands of years. It ain't going anywhere. It's probably one of the most safest assets. And like I said, some people say it's an insurance policy. Absolutely. It's a hedge. And so let's look at again with these BRICS nations here.
$20 bill in your wallet feels like it's evaporating faster every time you step into a grocery store. It's a nagging sensation. A realization that the numbers on the receipt are climbing while the physical weight of what you're carrying out seems to be shrinking. Most people call this inflation and move on, but this isn't just your standard economic cycle. It is the first tremor of a massive geopolitical tectonic shift that the majority of Americans are choosing to ignore until the ground actually opens up beneath them. Since 1944, the world has operated under the exorbitant privilege of the United States dollar. We've enjoyed a world where our currency is the undisputed king, the universal language of trade, and the ultimate safe haven. But while we have been collectively distracted by the glitz of the AI revolution and the dopamine hits of the stock market, a silent alliance of nations has been busy. They aren't just complaining about American dominance anymore, they are actively building a digital emergency exit backed by the oldest, most stubborn form of wealth known to man, gold. The catalyst for this wasn't a slow burn, it was a lightning strike. When the United States froze $300 billion of Russian reserves in 2022.
Yeah, I want to emphasize that. Again, I'll do other videos of Americans leaving America because they are tired of being dependent on a government that doesn't treat them very good. It's a similar concept. We have American citizens like me leaving America because we feel that the United States government is just not treating us fairly. Well, guess what? We have other sovereign governments like Russia and China. They feel the same. And when I left America, I never had any hatred against America. I never wished America would fall. I just want to be left alone. Well, guess what? There's other countries too. They don't have hatred for America. They don't want to destroy America. They want to be left alone, meaning they are tired of America being their boss, having power and control over them. From a purely leadership concept, you can't blame these people, meaning these other countries. They want to be independent from the American empire. Makes sense to me.
It sent a bone-chilling message to every capital city on the planet. Our financial system is no longer a neutral utility for global commerce. It has been transformed into a high-caliber weapon. This raises a terrifying set of questions for the average American family. If the dollar is no longer the undisputed king of the hill, what happens to the value of your home? What happens to that 401k you've been diligently funding for decades? If we lose the ability to print money and export our inflation to the rest of the world, our access to cheap imports, the very foundation of the American lifestyle, could vanish overnight. The answer to how this unfolds lies in a mysterious new entity emerging from the shadows called the unit. To understand the danger, we have to look at three critical questions. First, why are global central banks currently dumping U.S. government bonds and hoarding physical gold at a record-breaking pace not seen since the 1960s? Second, how do the mechanics of the unit and the Enbridge network actually work, and how could they realistically make the Western SWIFT system obsolete in the blink of an eye? And finally, is Donald Trump's proposed 100% tariff plan enough of a big stick to stop this wave of digital gold? Or are we truly
I've said many more. If anyone thinks these tariffs are going to intimidate, especially these BRICS nations, they're wrong. I view tariffs neutral. I think tariffs are mostly there to protect and subsidize the American corporations, but to the American worker, I think focus more on legal immigration, meaning cut back legal immigration, and of course, illegal immigration. That's the best way to help the American average Joe. Tariffs, on the other hand, are going to hurt a lot of Americans, and they're more to protect the American corporations. Another entity, Americans really don't have any sympathy for these American corporations.
witnessing the final sputtering days of the petrodollar era? Nobody can predict the exact moment a regime collapses, least of all economists, but the plumbing of the global financial world is being rerouted as we speak. 1. The weaponization of the dollar and the rise of friendshoring. Look, to understand why the world is changing, you have to look at the plumbing of the global economy. For decades, the US dollar wasn't just a currency, it was the undisputed operating system of the planet. Back in 2001, the dollar made up a staggering 72% of all global foreign exchange reserves. It was the gold standard without the actual gold. But by the end of 2024, that number had shriveled to about 58%. That isn't just a rounding error, it's a systematic exodus. So, why is the world suddenly catching a cold every time Washington sneezes? It's because the United States has turned the global payment system into a geopolitical trap. We've moved from a system based on mutual trust to one based on compliance with American foreign policy. The brutal realism of the situation is that we've been printing money at an eye-watering rate to finance a mountain of debt that would make a Roman emperor blush. Our global partners are watching this and realizing their wealth is being diluted, essentially. We are exporting our inflation to them while they hold our paper. The turning point was 2022. When Washington hit the kill switch on $300 billion of Russian reserves, the rest of the world realized that their savings weren't actually theirs. They were just entries in a ledger that America could erase at any moment. It sent a chill through every central bank from Brasilia to Beijing. They realized.
Yeah, and maybe to realize this, maybe from a personal perspective, again, we're not going to talk about Bitcoin on this episode, but picture it as an individual level of an American citizen. If your individual American bank cuts off your funding, where you as an individual don't have any access anymore to your individual bank, how would that make you feel? It'd be crazy. I mean, you would be in a heart attack mode. And so you're thinking of other forms of independent sovereign wealth. Gold could be Bitcoin. It's the same thing with these other countries. These other countries have a duty to protect the sovereign rights and security and wealth of their people. Do you think they want to be dependent on an American system, just like with the war with Ukraine and Russia, where America could simply freeze the funds of Russia? So again, I just want to focus is people think sometimes that the BRICS are the enemy. It is what it is, but it's sort of global politics like it is. People and sovereign states have their own, just like America first. There's China first, there's Russia first, there's India first. And one of those ways they're going to put their country first is not to be dependent on the American US dollar. So again, just a common sense approach.
That the financial system wasn't a neutral utility anymore. It was a weaponized tool of statecraft. And they didn't just sit there and take it, they started playing what you could call geopolitical ping pong with their trade. Instead of using the dollar, they began settling deals in their own currencies. Just look at the data from the final quarter of 2024. China, India, and Brazil dumped tens of billions of dollars in U.S. treasuries. They weren't just moving to cash, though. They were swapping those paper promises for tons of physical gold. They are returning to the oldest form of value because it's the only thing that doesn't have a return to sender address in Washington. This trend is what the suits call friend-shoring, trading only with people you trust because the global high road owned by the U.S. has too many tolls and traps. But here's the thing, trading in local currencies like the rupee or the real is a nightmare for a business owner. The exchange rates are as volatile as a tech startup stock price. If you're a country like Vietnam or Egypt, you can't just hope the other guy's currency doesn't collapse by next Tuesday.
And this is where they're going to get into a unit, a basket currency. Because like I said, even as these nations in the BRICS develop, they still don't have the confidence, meaning the world does not have the confidence to put one of their currencies above the US dollar. I agree. But if they put it as a basket that's heavily backed by solid gold, that changes the ball game drastically.
Which raises the billion-dollar question: how do 30 different nations, each with its own baggage and conflicting interests, trust each other without a middleman like the dollar? How do you ensure the game is fair when no one trusts the referee? Well, they think they found a new referee, one that is mathematically incapable of lying. They've built an algorithm that doesn't care about politics or sanctions, backed by the cold, hard weight of gold. But as this digital gold standard begins to hum to life, it forces us to ask what happens when this CEO AI takes the reins of global trade. And can the American empire survive a world where it no longer owns the ledger? 2. The unit, the new digital gold standard. While the world was busy watching tech stocks and AI startups, a new financial architecture was quietly being assembled in the background. It isn't a traditional currency issued by a single central bank, but rather a cross-border payment tool known simply as the unit. Think of it as a financial Swiss Army knife designed to solve one specific problem: how to trade trillions of dollars in goods without ever touching a US dollar. The structure of the unit is a clever hybrid. It is anchored by a basket where 40% of the value is physical gold, and the remaining 60% is composed of a basket of local BRICS currencies, specifically the Brazilian real, Russian ruble, Indian rupee, Chinese yuan, and South African rand. By using gold as nearly half of its backing, it introduces a level of stability that paper money simply cannot match. But the real magic isn't just in what backs it, it's in the underlying plumbing. Unlike the IMF's special drawing rights SDRs, which are essentially a form of debt that central banks can claim against one another, the unit is an asset that is nobody's liability. In plain English, that means when a country holds a unit, they aren't holding a promise from a foreign government that might be broken or frozen. They are holding a digital claim on a tangible, physical asset. This system runs on distributed ledger technology, DLT, the same backbone that powers blockchain. This allows for something called atomic settlement. Today, if a company in Shanghai wants to pay a supplier in Dubai, that transaction typically has to bounce through a series of correspondent banks in the West, often taking 3 to 5 business days and racking up fees at every stop. With atomic settlement, the exchange of assets and payment happens simultaneously and instantly. It is the difference between sending a physical letter through the mail and sending a text message. We aren't just talking about theory anymore either. A project called mBridge, a collaboration between the central banks of China, the UAE, Thailand, Hong Kong, and now Saudi Arabia, is already proving this works. In late 2025, the UAE
So I think we get the picture. What I want to do is tie this though at the very end. So again, what's this about? By now, hopefully you're realizing that the US dollar has been on a track of going down. Like all fiat currencies eventually go down. And just like Donald Trump said, correct, as the US dollar goes down, the US empire is going down. Someone who left America in 2010, that's what my prediction. This place is going down. And I can get into later maybe more of the details of how I think this is going. But what I want to do is bridge the gap between gold and crypto. Because I agree, crypto is a very mysterious, a very risky asset to invest in. So the first I want to dispel, the first thing is anyone who's telling you gold is not a good investment, I would just simply disagree with them, especially based upon my time in China and also my knowledge of these other BRICS nations. That this BRICS nation, along with other developing nations, like it or not, it's going to push the future world economy. And if they are strongly invested in gold and are investing away from the US dollar, well, that kind of signals where things are going. So again, gold and silver, good investment. But what about this thing called crypto? I want to do another video, but I want to tie this together. Now, the first thing I want to make very clear, there's two concepts that you have to understand when you're talking about crypto. One is the blockchain technology. And I want to emphasize technology. It is a technology. And the other are the cryptocurrencies that are used on it, which we're not even going to get into. One, you're very familiar, Bitcoin. I talk sometimes about XRP. We're not going to talk about that. And it is true, these are risky. But let's go back to the blockchain technology. So I view the blockchain technology similar to the breakthrough technology of the internet. That was whatever, 1997, 1995. And then I'd say the year 2000 is when the internet really came alive. But at that time, the internet was a brand new, remarkable technology that's changed the world. For good or for bad. I mean, we talk about we're constantly going globalization, technology, it's good or bad, but it has changed the world. And I think most would agree with us in a positive way. I mean, that's why if not, I wouldn't be speaking with you. And the best way to sum up for me, if you said, David, what is the internet? I would probably say the globalized integration of information. And you could also say the fast flow, so integration on a fast maximum rate, but globalized integration of information. And it's done wonders. I mean, you could watch YouTube videos of stuff that's going on in China. You have an internet PayPal or internet friend from India. You get what I mean, just based on this this live stream right here, the internet. What do I view the blockchain as? I view the blockchain similar like the internet as the globalized integration of financial transactions. And those financial transactions could be in many forms. One of them, again, we're not going to talk about what specific crypto is going to go. I'm more into utility crypto than actually Bitcoin, even though we're going to talk about it. But we are now, I do believe that the blockchain is something of value that we are going to be using. And also, one of the things that opened my mind was China. I view China, which is amazing, the development it's gotten. That China, yes, it went from communism, poor, to I view China now as more fascism. I would say I describe it as fascism. But the technological leap of China now, on average, it's higher than America, without a doubt. I mean, the way China it runs their society. So we do agree that globalization continues to move, technology continues to move, and this thing called the blockchain, I don't believe it's this scam or it's a technology. Similar to the internet focuses on information, the blockchain focuses on financial transactions. But these transactions, they're going to be what's called digitalized tokenized. And one of the biggest tokens I believe it's going to be on there is going to be gold. So gold is going to be tokenized, along with other stuff. I mean, who knows what's going to be? Your house could be tokenized, cars. I mean, everything could be commoditized, tokenized. So we're going to end up, it's sort of like when the internet first came out, it was sort of weird. And we only looked at it, at least growing up, I said, okay, I'm only going to use for email. That was the time I was like, okay, this thing called the internet, I guess all we're going to do is send an email from A to B. But then we realized there's so much more of the internet. You watch videos on it, you send information, and you can do financial transactions on the internet, not nearly at the level of what's going to be with the blockchain. So again, it's expanded on what the internet can do for information. That is going to be what this blockchain is going to do. It is going to expand on what we are able to do on a globalized level, integrated financial transactions, and they're going to be tokenized, but there's going to be certain tokens. And the best way to, without going too deep, is just like when the internet was coming out in the late 1990s, there were many players in the internet realm, but most of them died off. I mean, remember what was called AOL? A lot of them died off, and only the few won. Google went, I guess Yahoo is still around, but there were only a few winners. But there were a lot of players, sort of like cryptocurrencies. There are going to be a lot of players that are probably going to get wiped out. There's going to get wiped out, and there's only going to be a few who remain, and they're going to have all their own unique value. But it's going to come back to the blockchain. But what is going to be connected to that blockchain? Gold. And that's what China is going to do. This is with the BRICS currency. So not only is China looking at gold, physical hard set asset, to back the unit currency, but how are they going to trade it? How is this going? It's going to be back to the blockchain. Because I could tell you, the way China has done their transformation of technology, it's leaps and bounds. And I don't want to go on a tangent here, but I always see these podcasters, especially these yuppie liberals, or you get a lot of, trust me, I'm not getting paid anything by China. Trust me, when you say the word gook and chink, you're probably not getting money from China. I've said I try to look at China from both angles. There's negative stuff I could say positive. I'm not making any money from the Chinese government. The point being, though, is there are a lot of these influencers, they're getting paid for China, and they say, look at China, it's developing, it's becoming so technological, it's doing great. I agree with them, but they never mention that maybe it's also a fascist country that's also it's not multiracial, it doesn't include feminism. We could go down the line. I know I'm doing a tangent, but China is progressing. Again, gold is going to be a heavy commodity backing China like it has for thousands of years. But this new unit of currency is going to be backed by gold. The blockchain technology is going to be utilized to transfer around the world. And what do I feel about China? It's progressing phenomenal. And that's going to be the next video that I'm going to do on. And what is it going to be about? It's going to be an interesting video because what did I just say? If you're going to compliment China, like I do, then you have to compliment China that it is a fascist, ethno-nationalist country. It is what it is. Now, if you say China is doing bad, it's a horrible country, then it goes to your point that fascism is not good, that ethno-nationalism is not good. But if you're going to say China is doing very well, like I do, it's progressed very well. Guess what form of government do they have? They don't have communism anymore. I know they used to it. Mao Zedong, we'll do another video how but their form of government is a form of fascism, ethno-nationalism. And again, just ending it right here with the American empire. If, just like Donald Trump said, if the US dollar loses its world reserve status, this empire is going to be one of the biggest nails in the coffin. I don't believe that the BRICS unit is going to overtake the US dollar, just like I've never said China is going to overtake America. I've never said that. But the world is going to go in a multipolar world where both America and the US dollar is going to lose the dominant status, and America is going to have to learn how to share. That's how it is. It's going to be a multipolar world where China, along with other countries, are going to increase their dominance and power, and that currency called the unit is going to be looked upon just like we look upon the euro. The euro is a competitor to the US dollar. It's going to be at that status where people and banks, sovereign wealth funds are going to be looking at the unit, like the US dollar, as a legitimate competitive asset to hold. And that's the future we're going. I'll look at here if there's any final comments or question. It's the right conclusion. I'm seeing Shane right here. It's actually never been amended. So print money. And this is what I've said. Again, if anyone's got any questions, and I predicted this, and anyone knows if I say anything negative about Donald Trump, Bo said, best president of my entire lifetime. But I did say he will do what all the rest of the presidents do. He's going to print money. And that's not exactly helping out America in the long run. All it is kicking the can down the road. And most Americans, truth be told, they don't own assets. That's why most Americans are going to get wrecked. Most Americans are living, whatever, paycheck to paycheck. They have US dollars. They're not holding gold. They're not holding some type of asset. I could even talk a little about crypto, but what is a hedge against inflation? If you don't have one of these assets holding that's going to be a hedge against inflation, and of course, Donald Trump and all of his rich friends, they'll be fine. That's why they're planning this, and that's why they're also heavy into crypto and gold. But the average American, I think it's going to be a wrecking time. And this is where I believe the collapse goes, because once this economy gets so bad, there's going to be so many people falling out of the ship that it's going to be a reckoning you can't see. It is going to be bad. It's going to be the first step to a collapse. But other than that, let me just see if there's any final questions. I think that's it. This is David Baumblatt from Patriots Leadership. I appreciate everyone's support. And I keep saying, you're going to start seeing stuff you have never seen before. Even a person like me shouldn't be speaking here. And just remember this. I'll leave it at this. For America to get the US dollar as the world reserve currency, I mentioned this before, we had to win World War II. Yeah, World War. We had to win World War II through Bretton Woods. We basically said, we're the world leader and it's our money. So what I'm saying is, I don't believe China and the unit are going to be the new power. But the seismic shift that's happening is at least similar or a little bit of a lower level than World War II. So what does that mean? You're going to see changes you've never seen before. And what do I keep saying? If you think you've seen crazy, weird stuff now, whether in America or on the globe, you haven't seen anything yet. Picture an American or a German or Russian, 5 years prior to World War II. 5 years prior to World War II. And they're saying, hey, man, I think the world is going to change. I don't think so. Guess what? That world changed amazingly. For good or for bad, depends if you're the winner or the loser. Guess what? This same thing's going to happen. It's going to be at a momentum. I'm not saying it has to be a World War III, but just like there's military warfare, there's going to be economic warfare. That this system that's basically been going on since World War II, the American hegemonic system, is going to change into a multipolar system. This change doesn't happen smoothly. It doesn't happen voluntarily. It doesn't happen in a coordinated strike. There are going to be pieces that are going to break off, fall apart. There are going to be some major mishaps of winners and losers. And that's what I'm trying to hint to you. The amount of change that's going to happen is big. I think most Americans, though, listening are probably thinking that analogy I said about the broken bus. They're probably saying, David, I agree with you. I think a major change is going to happen. Well, what the fuck do I do? I'm just some dude in Ohio working a shit 9-to-5 job with these crappy corporations. What do I do? And you want to know what? It's tough. Some people they're just going to sort of fall with the ships. But the rich people, don't worry, they're going to plan it. But like I said, if you're an average American, I know money's tight, but if you're going to invest, maybe get some gold and silver, maybe start thinking about that self-reliance, independence. And I keep saying all the time, this is where you're seeing politics. Maybe you're going to have to start picking and choosing your friends wisely, meaning hard times are coming. So all your fair weather friends, and we all know we have plenty of fair weather friends, maybe it's time to say goodbye and either have one friend or maybe 3 good friends. So what I'm trying to tell you is I get it. I get the typical average middle-class American that says, David, I agree with you. This ship is going to sink. I don't have another passport. I don't have money. I can't leave America. What do I do? I get it. But there are small things you can do in your own life. And the first thing I would say, Leadership 101, is you build the team. Build the team. And what do I mean by that? And politics are going to come into place. Maybe start picking and choosing your friend. We all know we have all these fair weather friends say, hey, Jim, let's go watch the football game tonight. And you're realizing maybe it's time I need to stop hanging around with these dudes who are just fair weather friends. And if things get really tough, I'm going to need really good friends to hang out with. And maybe I just have 1 good friend or 2 good friends. Invest time in them. Invest time in your health. Invest time in saving your money. Invest time in a good woman, or maybe no woman, because a bad woman will do more harm. So what I don't want to explain. There could be other videos, but I just still want to say from a leadership standpoint, there are still things you can do if you're just the average American. But I'm telling you, the first to do is to put your mind, we call it believe, conceive, achieve. And the first thing is you need to start asking yourself, is this ship sinking or not? Because some people are still delusional and they still think the government's going to be with them. Everything's going to be fine. Things are going to get worse. So it goes back to one of the best things that young boys could do in America which also, as we explained before, has turned into an absolute shit show of an organization. It's the United States. It's called Boys of America or Boy Scouts of America. And what is the motto of the Boy Scouts of America? Be prepared. That's probably my best advice. There are ways that you could start becoming more prepared, even though you may be a low income earner, middle class guy in the middle of nowhere in America. There's still things you could do. Even if you take $100 and say, well, instead of spending it for this garbage, maybe in a nice silver coin, a nice $100 silver coin, you're going to see silver price go. So I'll save those videos for later, but I still want to mention it is dollar's going down, gold is going up, the American empire is going down. And even if you're an average American citizen, there are still things you can do to be prepared. This is David Baumblatt from Terebinth Leadership. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your help. And until then, lead to victory.